To overcome, you must educate. Educate not only yourself, but educate anyone seeking to learn. We are all dead America. We can all learn something. To learn, we must challenge what we already understand. The way we do that is through conversation. Sometimes we have conversations with others. However, some of the best conversations happen with ourselves. Reach out and challenge yourself. Let's dive in and learn something new right now. Today we are speaking with Rhonda Parker Taylor. She is an award-winning author. She has her book on the #1 bestseller on Amazon, and the book is titled Crossroads. Rhonda, could you please introduce yourself and let people know just a little more about you, please?
I would love to, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate you meeting with me at 7 p.m., making yourself available. I know, your time is valuable. Um, like you said, my name is Rhonda Parker Taylor. I'm an author. I am originally started in academics as an academic researcher and writer, and I know we'll probably talk a lot about my emotional intelligence study. I delivered that for the UN Global Compact Committee, which is part of the United Nations, when they were at Case Western in Ohio. And that particular model and that particular committee is all about sustainable. How do we make our lives more sustainable? How do we make people more resilient? How do we make communities more resilient? And the purpose of the emotional intelligence study was to find out what the difference was between multinational leaders and domestic leaders in their leadership skills. And we use the emotional intelligence model to be able to figure that out. And I am so looking forward to talking to all of you about the journey between being an entrepreneur and academic and then following my passion, which is writing. So many of us out there, really, we say, oh, I would love to write a novel, or I would really like to do my music, or whatever it might be that, you have a passion for. And I would like to tell everybody, follow that passion too. It doesn't mean that you have to uproot your whole career. It means that you have to saw out a little piece of your life that gives time for that passion. It may be, gardening, whatever the passion may be. It doesn't have to be something where you're in front of people.
Well said, Rhonda, and I like that. Let's start off with, you did not go to school to become a writer. It like you just stated, it's a passion. So what did you go to school for?
So I went into school. Well, first of all, there's a whole journey that goes a part of that. But I went to school thinking that I would be in business. I thought I would be a buyer in fashion. And I went that route. I went to Dallas because, of course, that's where all the rich, beautiful, single people are supposed to be, at least in my generation, because the show Dallas was out, right? So I went to school just outside of Dallas, Arlington, and I picked up my bags as a young person and thought, I'm going to meet the world head on. And I didn't know a soul there. And as I started that academic journey into college, I found out that I was smarter than I thought. And I think many of us equate academics with how smart or successful you're supposed to be. And so I thought, this is the journey I have to do. And what I found in that process was not only was I smarter than I thought, but my life experience was going to make me more successful than most people would have ever thought, because I had learning challenges when I was younger. And I was more considered social than academic. And now I have a doctorate. And all of it's because as you start to follow the steps and put the things in place for you to be successful, then it's all about opportunity meeting preparation. And when you have opportunity and preparation meeting, what happens is you have luck. Because what everybody's like, oh, you're the luckiest person in the world. No, you have to be driven. You have to, work. And I have to contribute part of that success to a family mottos, which is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And that means if we want something to happen, we can't expect someone else to fix it for us, make it happen for us, open doors for us. That we have to go in there and we have to make it happen. And so I kind of took that, Middle Eastern motto and just took off with it and did the best I could. And you know what? Hard knocks comes along with it, but you just keep on getting up and doing it.
That is for sure. And I like your energy that comes along with that. And it shows if you do any research on you, Rhonda, it just follows you about. You're active, you're doing what you're supposed to do in life. And sometimes that involves our passion. So you're a lucky individual to have that involved into your life for sure. Many of us, we get lost and stuck and confused with life. So that really follows into the emotional intelligence that we're dealing with in our world today. It's kind of disheartening for sure, but I really think that we're seeing an uptick on that. You know, just the focus on our mental state in whole. So emotional intelligence is everything. How did you become associated with research on emotional intelligence, and what got you started down this road? Also, a three-parter here. Why is that so important for people to understand?
Sure, I would love to share that because, so many times our self talk tells us that we're not going to be successful. We're not going to be happy. We're not going to meet our dreams. And a lot of that comes from um, what we're told as children. If you don't get A's in math, if you don't get, um, great grades in English or whatever the message was, you're not going to be successful, even if it's the only one time someone says that to you. For every one time someone says something negative, it takes about 10 to 15 positives to overcome that message. So for me, I needed something, and when I was reading in college about emotional intelligence, I'm like, ooh, this is a thought. So emotional intelligence is the right brain. So you have what everybody else is saying, which is, you have to have math, reading, writing. You have to have this. The IQ does matter, but the equivalent to the IQ is the EQ. And the EQ is your emotional quotient. It's the ability to navigate the world. It's kind of like the yield sign. You slow down, you listen, and when emotions come from the gut of anybody in the room, you stop. Because you have to address the emotion to be able to move anything forward. It doesn't matter if it's a conversation. It doesn't matter whether it's a decision-making thing because there's a problem that you're trying to solve. It doesn't matter if it's a family matter. If there's emotion, which is typically caused by a fear or a lack of understanding, if there's emotion in anybody in the group, then if it's not addressed and identified, then what ends up happening is there is no positive exchange. So yes, in today's world, you're absolutely correct. It makes a difference, because if we aren't practicing emotional intelligence development, then what we're doing is we're holding ourselves back. And it's been proven in studies, in academic studies, that people with higher emotional intelligence are more successful than the ones with lower emotional intelligence and higher IQ. It's not saying that IQ is discounted. That is not what I'm saying, because IQ does matter as far as ability to do your logic and your reasoning skills, etc., right? Because you have to make, solid decisions, and part of that is your IQ, or the ability of the people in the room to share their knowledge in those areas, especially in today's data world. But it's the ability to listen to everybody in the room and find out what their opinions are, what their thoughts are. And when you can do that, not only do you come out with a better decision or a better outcome or a better relationship, all the things that, emotions destroys or builds up, but you end up being able to have a practice positivity in your life, which gives you a reputation of someone you can be worked with. And we've all been with people that blow up, degrade, or whatever, when at the workplace or at home or whatever it might be. And it doesn't fare well for somebody.
Yes. So communication is key to emotional intelligence. When we learn to communicate, we get higher emotional. Is that correct?
It's communication, it's the ability to listen. So there's 21 characteristics of emotional intelligence. They range from interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, empathy, openness to experience, narcissism. All of those are degrees of in a person. Nobody's 100% of all of them. And if you have a higher degree in in all of them, then you have higher emotional intelligence. You can have one that's stronger than others. So, for instance, my father is a good example. All my life, and we all could relate to this because we all have parents, I used to say, you just have no empathy. You just don't see it from the other person's side. And he's an entrepreneur. He's a very successful entrepreneur. And he had a very high emotional intelligence score because he was one of the domestic leaders that I put on the study. We did it for fun, and we did it for his development. But he's also a domestic leader. He owns a manufacturing company that only works in one country, right? And his emotional intelligence was high for the domestic leaders. But he looked at the scores. He's like, you're right. I have no empathy. And that kind of impacted him because he's like, I scored almost as low as you could on thinking about what being worried about other people's problems, feelings, etc. And that changed him. That changed his outlook on how he was going to be as a leader. So when you go through all 21 of those characteristics, you can build a plan. What am I going to do if I'm in this situation? What are the drawbacks? And like, for instance, one of the characteristics is openness to experience. If you're open to experience, you're more open to listen to other people and their experiences and what's going on. And then you can get engineers and writers and customer service reps and salespeople all in one room and get them to communicate, which is what you had said, and stay disciplined and stay focused into what you're there to achieve.
Yeah. So good leaders actually have high emotional intelligence levels, and that that's where they shine, really, because all of those 21 aspects of characterizing your emotional intelligence value. It's like you can take a score on each one of those and have an overall basis for your emotional intelligence level.
Right. And how you're treating how you, because see, some people they say, "Oh, I have great control over my emotions," but they're like a staunch person, like like a stick figure, and that's not emotional intelligence either. So just keeping your mouth shut, that's called a spiral of silence. You're really just keeping your mouth shut because you're not dealing with your emotions or the people in the room. You just don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Very interesting when you get into it. And a lot of people, they want to shy away from understanding their emotions. I think I've developed so much more, and I've become a better person for understanding myself more and challenging myself with that aspect of life. As we stated earlier, in our world today, we're lacking this sense of emotional intelligence. So let's segue into your book, Crossroads. Why the why Crossroads?
Okay, so the title kind of tells you a lot about the book. So I'm from Indiana. The book is based in 1982, Indiana. I picked real sites, so the people reading it will see real locations that would have been like it was in 1982 in Indiana. It is fiction, and it's a suspense um, novel like an Agatha Christie or a Grisham. Okay, so some of the sites are the downtown Indianapolis Circle, the city county building, the mayor's office, and I used real sites. And the reason I did that is I want people not only to learn from the characters, but I want them to also learn about the environment that would shape the characters. So why I chose Crossroads is all of us reach a crossroads in life. All of us at some point where we have to make a decision to go right or we got go left. I got my book here so everybody can see. So I have the dead bodies dropped at the railroad tracks. So it's not on there, but that's where it's. But these are actually railroad tracks in Indianapolis, and one of the reasons why it was endorsed by Merrill Hemingway. For those younger generation people, you may not know who that is. That's Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter, and she was a very and still is, and she's an author also herself, and she's was an actress with Woody Allen, Lipstick, and several other, and she Golden Globe and Academy Award winner. But most of us think, someone that's successful, their life is charmed. But they don't look at the shoe on the other foot. And I think she was able to kind of relate to it. And when she put the YouTube video called Merrill Hemingway Praises Rhonda Parker Taylor's Crossroads, when she put that out there, when I listened to it, I was like, oh, she got it. And that's why why she chose to pick it up for her book club. And she talks about some of the challenges that she had. And so the main character has challenges. She's a high driven, high powered individual, and much like all of us, she's learned that your career is your path to success, and but she's not paying attention to anything else in her life. And what she gets called to jury duty, and all of a sudden she's starting to see there is no winners and losers. Her thoughts of what the world would be like in the criminal justice system isn't really what it is. She's seeing young men in shackles, walking through. She's questioning all this. Meanwhile, things start happening to her. And so it's up to them to figure out why. And Merrill Hemingway said, she said, even chocolate has an expiration date. So everybody's crossroads is that you have an expiration date. You have to figure out, and is it going to be that you're going to die and you didn't fulfill your passions? Is it going to be that you didn't make the right decision because you wouldn't make the right decision? And she's all about mental health. So each one, I have another fiction book coming out. The working title is called Chosen, but it takes, each character is going to have, it has its own book. But it will also have a self-help book attached to it. So if you identify with the character, I'll put it on this side. I think this is a little bit more photogenic. So this is a life balance book. When you're out of balance, things happen to you. So this is a workbook to allow you to realize that when you get out of balance, any one of these things tips you over and everything falls apart. It doesn't matter whether you're a workaholic, familyaholic, TV-aholic, gaming, social media. When you get out of balance, everything falls apart. So it helps you plan this. Most of the time, we only plan, for our career, finances, kids, a few things, but we don't have a plan for all of our areas of life.
Yeah, very interesting. I like that new book, and that's really big part of our world is that work life balance, social life balance. Everything has balance, and once we figure that out, we can be truly happy. And it's not that difficult, but yet so many of us get lost in that struggle of finding that balance, which is key to happy me. So, yeah, it's wonderful. When does that book come out?
Well, it was supposed to be out May. They haven't given me the new deadline. I'm going to say it's August. They had some graphic issues for it. But I would say, I've got a question for you. How many goal plans do you have? And what areas do you plan and try to set goals for?
Well, actually, I am working on that struggle myself right now.
Oh,
I myself have been coming out of a traumatic life experience trying to fix myself. And that's what this transitional podcast is about, Dead America. So
right.
I'm constantly looking at what's wrong in my life and
Mhm.
trying to change that to make not only my life better, but my wife's life better. Because if I'm out of balance, she's out of balance,
Oh,
our
yeah.
house is out of balance, our community, and it just emulates out like ripples in a pond when you throw a rock. And once I discovered that, I started working on myself diligently and digging past the fears of what I might dredge up in the swamp, because that's what your life truly is until you get that balance and understanding you're in control.
Right.
So I'm setting goals for my podcast,
Good.
just specifically right now, my podcast. And I've been trying to get my wife, we're dealing with emotions there, and I want her to be more comfortable telling her story so she can bring that forth in a podcast setting and start talking to individuals like I chose to do, because it's not easy. And
No,
that's one
not.
of the goals of my life. So we're working on that, and
And
that's
it
just a
will.
taste of.
Yeah, and you know what it will do? It will open up a whole new light for you. See, we in today's society, like you said, we got so many pressures, and everything is built around we have to be bigger, badder, better, and we got to keep going. And and my niece taught me a phrase, and I've said it 100 times since she's done, probably more than 100 times since she said it, and she said, "We are human doing, not human beings." Think about it. We get little checklists. And we just keep doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. And then what happens? You end up doing, not being. Sometimes you do have to reevaluate, share, and if you look at all your dimensions in your life, it takes time. And yeah, that means you have to take time from something else. But I bet if you sit down and think about what you've been doing all day, there's spots that you could put meditation, going outside because it's a pretty day, getting your vitamin D, spending time with your animals, spending time with your loved ones. You know, if you're not intentional, and that is a hard practice, and I struggle with it every day. I'm like, okay, what have I done intentional for my loved ones? Well, I made a phone call. Well, that's a good one. That's a good start. I made a text, or I made dinner, or what. But what have you done intentional to show value and to be valued? That then you have to communicate, and that's hard. You know, how do you how do you tell each other? Even if it's an aunt or an uncle, it's hard, let alone someone that you spend a lot of time with. How do you do that and stay balanced? So I felt like a workbook would help. You could do it individually, you could do it as a family, you could do it as friends together, and really kind of develop a plan for all the dimensions of your life.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I like that you highlighted intention. If you don't have intention for your life, you're just going day by day doing nothing. So it's important. And we make it intentional on Saturdays to sit down and open up a self-help book of whatever, and we go through a chapter. She'll read one week, I'll read the next week, and then we converse over what we read, and we make that intentional to include each other in what our life is about, making it better for us. So intention is everything. And I'm glad that you brought that into the
Thank
conversation
you.
today. Uh, so what what's the end for writing for you? Do you have a goal for more books after this, or are you just one day at a time with your writing now? Because you say it's a passion.
Yeah. And it's a hard passion. It's one that is in the desires, and then there's reality. How much time can you spend writing with everything else? Because I do still have my consulting. So my philosophy for people that, especially creatives that want to follow a passion, or that could be anything really, is for books. If you do one page a day, you get one book out a year. And if you same thing, if I when I was younger, I played the piano and saxophone. I'm terrible at it now. Probably couldn't even read one or two notes, because when you get away from it, you don't do it. And I'm old. I'm old and senile now. And same thing with music. If you go through one draft, one lyric, one bar at a time, and you get it right, then you you can still do it. Same thing with whether it be a podcast or engaging with others. It doesn't take that you have to dedicate your whole entire life. If you're wanting to engage more with a loved one, like you said, every Saturday is from this time to this time, and you don't break it. Make a commitment to do it. Stay connected. Then, in all of your ways. It doesn't mean that it's supposed to be just. See, we spend so much time comparing ourselves to others and trying to come up with another their standard, that we don't do our own standards of what's important to us.
Finding that freedom right there is the key to life, because it's all about perception, really, how you perceive the world. And if you perceive it in a negative light, you're going to be a negative person. So my number one suggestion is look for the positive in all situations. It's there. Somehow, somewhere, you will run across that positive connection in whatever experience we've went through. So, you know, intention, positivity, and doing it, making it happen, and staying relevant in our world is all about those three things right there.
That's exactly right, and you're hitting the nail right on the head, because if you can work on your skills with others and learn from others and move forward with those connections and with intention, like we've been talking about, you surround yourself with that positivity, that practice of positivity brings positivity back to you. Because of course there'll be some that will want to squash it. Don't, but that's where you practice the emotional intelligence, and you take care of yourself, and make sure that you're learning from those lessons, and you're finding the lessons and the beauty in everything. I have a practice of opening my blinds, and what does it matter if you open your blinds? It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of thing. You go to work and you come back and you close them, right? But in my mind, it sets the tone for my day. It you make your bed, you open the blinds, and I look out and I see the world, and I see every part of my world. I see the front, the side, the back, and I can have a moment of reflection. It might be, hey, there's a branch that fell down that needs to be pulled out of here before I mow. It might be, oh, look at that cute squirrel. Or it might be, I live on 3 acres, so I have all kinds of critters that come through. So I might see a baby deer, or a rabbit that decides to jump up with the squirrels and try to eat the squirrel and the bird food. And actually, anybody that wants to see me on social media, go on social media. I have a video, and I swear it's the most awesome thing. But we had a family of hawks that came through, and not understand why this hawk would not attack some of the, I mean, literally stand, they don't eat the food, but they were literal, but it was to gain their trust, and they want the babies. They don't want, but literally sitting with a rabbit, a squirrel, birds, and a big hawk sitting there looking. And I'm like, what the? And I did take the picture, and of course, it was just for that moment, but I'm like, wow, that was the most, but had I not opened the blinds to see, I would have missed it. And, it was, so I would say that particular day, or a couple of days, was both terrifying because they are awesome, and exhilarating, because if you've ever had a hawk scream at you or screech at you, literally looking at you, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a scene from a suspense novel, right? But but at the time, that's nature. That's the way they communicate. And it's something that you can really enjoy. So I would say, you don't have, if you want to follow me, great, but go look at that video, because that's what our world should be like. Could you imagine if we could all sit at the table like that?
Yeah. Well, that's part of my life. I live on a couple acres in Oregon in the national forest up
Oh
by
yeah, you've
Crater
got.
Lake, and I see eagles, deer, bear, everything,
Mhm.
and being so close to that, knowing that I'm encroaching on their territory,
It really is.
I've got to make myself at one. with that scenario, and it's part of just exhilarating life, and I choose that. I could choose to be in town where there's cars, planes, buses, trucks, and that's a different lifestyle. So
Right.
choosing our lifestyle to fit who we are is very important.
Oh,
And
definitely.
that's one of those aspects of life we forget to even think about. And that's
Right.
why many of us are miserable. So I think that's part of that living with intention. It
Yeah.
has to come from the heart, and it starts with each and every one of us. So, have we missed anything that you would like to discuss, Rhonda?
You know what I'd like to discuss? I think I'd like people to realize that if they want something, if they truly want something, they can have it. Be who you are because you're beautiful. You're wonderful. All of us are. We're unique. We're wonderful. And stay disciplined to who you are. Don't let envy and fury and anger and jealousy destroy your own peace. Even if you're not where you want to be, because we all go through those downward cycles and then we have to get ourselves back up. Put one foot in front of the other, put your chin up, and enjoy where you're at. Play some dominoes, go for a walk, and go to the places that inspire you, and just realize that this is just a moment. We have life to live. So be unique and love yourself, and you will be fine.
Yep. Yep. I like that. I think that's very good advice. And I think if people really want to be happy, put one foot in front of the other, baby step your way to a
Mhm.
better life. And if you need help, reach out to those individuals out there giving out help, and inspire your way to a better life if you need to do that, because we all need a hand up sometimes, and
Oh,
that's critical.
definitely. I can tell you a story that I had adopted a young man, and he raised him. He was at work. He got shot and killed. And during that moment, um, I was a mess. I was just a mess. I'll just admit it. I was a mess. And when you say reach out to people, I would pull into a church parking lot, not know which religion it was, not know what denomination it was, and I would be, I just in there. It could have been downtown Indianapolis in the worst neighborhood. It could have been, in the suburbs. It could have been anywhere. It didn't matter. I just pulled my car in and just started crying and bawling, and you know what? I found the best people that way because I went to the resource where people can help me, and you your point on that is perfectly on cue because sometimes you do need help, and it may be just to bawl your eyes out and let someone listen. And you know what? You can't do it to your family every day because guess what? They have to work, they have to feed their kids, they get tired too, and sometimes you need an expert. That expert, if you have an addiction, if you have, you know we're not, family's not therapy. They're to love you. So if you need spiritual guidance, family may know, different parts of the Bible or Quran or whatever it might be, right? But they don't know how to help you because they're not an expert. So you're right. Reach out, go to those places and get the help you needed. Counseling, what it might be.
Yeah, I think this is a very powerful and motivating conversation that we've had today,
I enjoy.
Rhonda. And I would like to have you share how people can reach out and get in touch with you.
I try to make it easy for all of you. I'm sure my name's on the screen, Rhonda Parker Taylor. It's rhondaparkertaylor.com. All the social medias are Rhonda Parker Taylor. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Which one did I miss? I'm starting TikTok. I'm trying to get it up and going. I'm an old dog trying to learn a new trick. I'm a little slow, and I'm not quite as engaging. But guess what? I am getting you some videos out there too. Also my website, obviously, rhondaparkertaylor.com. That has all my social media at the bottom for you to click the link.
Rhonda, it's been a delight speaking with you. You're very knowledgeable, and I'm so happy that you're out there sharing it with people openly and getting that discussion flowing. Thank you so much for sharing it here today on the Dead America podcast.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great night. Make every day great.
Thank you for joining us today. If you found this podcast enlightening, entertaining, educational in any way, please share, like, subscribe, and join us right back here next week for another great episode of Dead America Podcast. I'm Ed Waters, your host. Enjoy your afternoon, wherever you may be.